It's the 3 on PLAXtv.
Yeah. With all due respect to the great Dr. J and everything he's done for the game and his accomplishments and what he did in his career, Dr. J, you are wrong. And you're not only wrong, you are disgustingly wrong. And assuming that this list that you put out wasn't your just own personal favorites, this was your legit top 10 of all time list. Assuming that that's the case, anyone who doesn't have LeBron James, not just on their top 10, but at the bare minimum in their top 3 of greatest of all time, like greatest of all time, your opinion isn't valid. And that's from a short, fat motherfucker who's barely even played organized basketball. But if you, as a fan, I'm not even talking about as a player, because Dr. J is one of the greatest players ever, but as a fan of basketball and someone who knows basketball, like I know Dr. J knows basketball because he was a superstar in the NBA and the ABA. He carried a whole league by himself at one point. Not by itself, but mostly by itself. To not have LeBron James, this is bare minimum in your top 3, really top 2, but bare minimum top 3 greatest of all time, your opinion on basketball needs to be questioned thoroughly. And I might liken this to, because some people commented on Facebook and stuff like that and Twitter that maybe he's just upset that he doesn't get the respect that he deserves, and he doesn't. I wholeheartedly agree with that. A lot of legends don't get the respect they deserve, whether it be because of the time they played in or, you know, different rules that they had when they played. It's a multitude of reasons why they don't get the respect they deserve, and Dr. J is one of them, because Dr. J is the reason everybody got sneaker deals now. Dr. J is part of the reason the NBA tried to be better, because the ABA was coming. People like to shit talk the ABA, but the ABA for at least 5 seasons was the best basketball league in America and pretty much in the whole world. There was a 5-year span where the ABA was the best basketball league in the world, and the NBA was crumbling bad. So, and Dr. J was the best player in that league. The NBA had to scrounge and try to get Dr. J in that merger because he was the one keeping them afloat. You see what I'm saying? He came to the NBA and still dominated. Even though he was older, he still dominated. And then he eventually won a championship. But he doesn't get the credit he deserves, and I understand that. Some people's like, maybe he mad, that's why he didn't put certain players on his top 10 list. But regardless if you're mad or not, you still have to be realistic. And as a fan of basketball and someone who's played basketball, I'm very shocked, because to not have LeBron James, not just on your top 10, but not just in your top 3, but not even in your top 10 greatest basketball players of all time, not personal favorites, because personal favorites is different. My top 10 personal favorites is way different than my opinion on the top 10 greatest of all time. I might do a video on both of those later on, but not personal favorites, but greatest top 10 players in NBA history, and you don't have LeBron James in your top 3, you're crazy. You're crazy as hell, and you might be a hater. Dr. J is getting older. Dr. J is getting older, and he is very old school. He's an old school dude. He from back in the day. So maybe he losing it a little bit. Maybe he's losing a little bit. Maybe, old age get to everybody. At some point, Father Time and old age gets to you, whether it be your mentals, your physical, Emotionally, old age get to you eventually. And this is one of the first times I've noticed from Dr. J that old age is getting to him because he's tripping. Now, let's get to this list real quick. He didn't have it in order or anything, but this is who he has on his top 10 greats of all time list, not in any particular order. I'm going to go to the ones that, that should be on there, and then we'll talk about the ones that shouldn't. He has Michael Jordan. Yes, definitely. Michael Jordan is 1 or 2, depending on who you ask. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Kareem is, 3, depending on who you ask, right? Magic Johnson. My personal opinion, Magic and Bird is tied at like 4 and 5 around that area. So, yes, understandable. Big O. I think Big O is an extremely underrated basketball player because of the time he played in, and people like to discredit that time period a lot of times. I think Big O is a top 3, top 5 point guard of all time. That's my personal opinion. So Big O being top 10, I wouldn't necessarily put him in there, but him being on this list ain't as crazy as some people may think. I'm 50-50 on Big O because I see why Big O would be in it, but I also see why he shouldn't. You see what I'm saying? Bill Russell. You got to have Bill Russell in your top 10. Understandable. Wilt Chamberlain. You got to have Wilt Chamberlain, in your top 10. Wilt may be falling out a little bit now, but because Steph and certain people have certain arguments, but Wilt, as it stands, is probably still in the top 10. That's understandable. But now let's get into the crazy ones. Now, Big O, like I said, I'm 50-50 on Big O, partially because I'm a fan of his. He's one of my favorite players of all time. Big O, personal opinion, I would have him in there. But realistically, no. Big O is not a top 10 greatest player of all time, unfortunately. Jerry West. Now, Jerry West has an argument. He's the logo. But a big reason why he is the logo is because he was a white man who was really good at basketball. Was he the best player on the court a lot of times? Not always. Because you could argue Bill Russell was the best player in the world, or Wilt Chamberlain was the best player in the world during that time period when they made Jerry West the logo. Or his teammate, Elgin Baylor, you could argue, was the best player in the world at that time. Or Big O. There's a lot of other black players that during that time period where Jerry West was dominating the 50s, 60s, 70s, that from what I've seen, would say are better than him in most cases, whether it be that they two-way players or they do more than just score. Jerry West was a great scorer, and he was a good passer. He was a decent defender, which I didn't know. But it's some guys that I put over Jerry West just in his time period alone. So, and not to discredit him, he is the logo, and he was great. But I think he got that logo nudge because he was a white man, and at the time, giving a black guy more accolades than you wanted to was crazy. And then to be realistic, Jordan probably should be the logo right now. If we just being completely honest about, if the logo is the greatest player ever, not putting LeBron on there because LeBron's still playing. And LeBron don't really have a logo per se that you could use that will work. Jordan already has a logo that if you made it the NBA logo, nobody would think it was crazy. So that's my So Jerry West, I don't put Jerry West in the time. And he only got, he got one championship, maybe 2, something like that. He lost like 10 times in the finals or some crap. People talk shit about LeBron. Never mentioned that Jerry West lost like 10 times in the finals. Granted, it was to the Celtics, but you still lost. But you know what I'm saying? You still lost in the finals 10 times or 8 times or some crazy shit like that. So no, I don't have Jerry West in the top 10. Elgin Baylor. Elgin Baylor, I see why Dr. J put him on there because Elgin Baylor probably was the guy he looked up to growing up as a young black man playing basketball and stuff like that. So I get why he put him in there. And I personally feel like Elgin Baylor is the prototype small forward. He made what the small forward is today. Without Elgin Baylor, we don't have Dr. J. We don't have LeBron James. We don't have Kawhi Leonard. We don't have Paul George. All your favorite small forward, Scottie Pippen. We have none of those guys because Elgin Baylor was the prototype small forward. And what I mean by that is just an all-around elite player. He's playing defense. He's posting up. He's shooting jump shots. Obviously not threes, but he was shooting jump shots. He can facilitate a little bit. He's blocking shots. He's getting steals. He's getting rebounds. Elgin Baylor was that. And I have to give that to him. But again, just because you were the first person to do something doesn't mean you're the greatest person to do something. And I acknowledge that Elgin Baylor is the prototype small forward. And without him, we don't have all these great small forwards that we have today or that we've had over time. But Elgin Baylor is not a top 10 greatest player of all time at this point. In the 70s, he was. Hell, even in the 80s to the 90s, he was probably. Not today. Not at this point. This one pisses me off for other reasons. Karl Malone. I like to start off the Karl Malone section by saying fuck Karl Malone. I feel like Karl Malone should be erased from NBA history. Not because of his on the court play or anything like that. It's because before or like around the time he was going to the NBA, he sexually assaulted a little girl. And he got away with it with his money and I'm assuming help from the NBA or his college or whatever the fuck happened. He got away with it. And he got to have a long, illustrious career. And he's living somewhere in butt-fuck nowhere, living the life. And I don't think he deserves that. He should be in jail or dead. And Adam Silver, I'm going to do a video on this. Rick and I did a video on this too. Head on over to the RMP podcast if you want more information. But Adam Silver invited him to the All-Star game this previous All-Star game because it was in Utah. And I didn't understand it. I didn't understand it at all because it's known fact that he sexually assaulted a child. Not only sexually assaulted a child, he impregnated that child. And that his child that was had through that child, oh my God, fuck, is now going to the NFL or in the NFL or something like that. So Karl Malone should, and for Dr. J knowing that, to still put him in his top 10 is crazy as fuck to me, but old people like to ignore shit like that all the time. I don't know why. I don't know what it is with old people. Maybe some old person could comment down below and tell me why. I don't really give a fuck why, because that's disgusting to ignore that and just keep it moving like that didn't happen. But, you know, old person, let me know. Some old person in the comments or somebody around my age, let me know your opinion on that. Why do old people ignore that shit? I don't even mean with Karl Malone specifically. I just mean in general. Why do old people just ignore shit like that and just keep it moving like it's okay? That's a separate conversation. That don't got nothing to do with basketball. I just think Karl Malone shouldn't exist in NBA history. I think he should just be erased. Besides that, taking my personal feelings out of it, Karl Malone, what has he accomplished for him to be top 10 basketball wise? He didn't break the scoring record. He was second or something for a long time. And then now he's like third or fourth. So like that's great. That's great being top 5 in scoring all the time. That's great, but that just means you took a lot of shots. You scored a lot. Okay. I personally take Charles Barkley over him. So if we're gonna put him there, then Chuck should be there too. He doesn't have any championships. I think he might have won one with the Lakers. He might have won one with the Lakers. I'm not counting that because like he barely played. If he did win with the Lakers, somebody let me know in the comments if he won with the Lakers. If he did, he barely played, so I don't really count that per se. Or Miami. It was either Lakers or Miami. I feel like he got one somewhere. If he did, he barely played. And so I'm not going to necessarily count that per se because you didn't win it when you were the best player in the world or one of the best players in the world. So whatever. I think he got an MVP, which is cool. But when I think about the top 10 players of all time, I'm not thinking about the bare minimum. And that's all of that shit is the bare minimum when you're talking about top 10 players of all time. Right. Well, enough about him. I fucking hate Karl Malone. Fuck Karl Malone. And he has Tiny Nate Archibald. That might be the worst one basketball-wise. I respect the hell out of Tiny Nate Archibald. When I started learning more about basketball and doing my deep dives into basketball history and stuff like that, because I like history, I love basketball, so learning about old basketball was exciting to me when I was growing up, even still to this day. But I know who Tiny Nate Archibald is. He's a great point guard. He is one of the great point guards of all time. He's definitely top 15 to 20 all time when it comes to point guards. When it comes to players, he's not in the conversation. And I mean that with the utmost respect. He's not even in the conversation. To even mention his name in this conversation is pure insanity. And I think Dr. J, with the combination of not having LeBron on your list, not having Kobe Bryant on your list, not even mentioning Steph Curry on your list, which Steph, I would have to sit down and do a top 10 list myself. Steph, I think with that fourth championship is in there now. I would have to write it out and look at it first. But not even mentioning Steph Curry is crazy. Not having Kobe Bryant or LeBron James on your list is crazy. Putting Tiny Nate Archibald on your top 10 list is crazy. And acknowledging Karl Malone is crazy within itself. So I think as I progress through how crazy this list is, Dr. J is not only wrong, Dr. J should be like put in a home or something. Cause like, bro, sir, what are you talking about, man? What are you talking about? Either you stopped watching basketball in 1996, which I know you didn't because he be at games and stuff like that, so I know you didn't stop watching basketball, or you're being spiteful and just trying to be funny, or you just being clouded by being an old head. And that's all of those things is bad. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Am I wrong? Is Dr. J right? All the old heads, come at me in the comments. Tell me I'm just a young blood and I don't know what I'm talking about. But I will like to, before you do that, I will like to say I'm one of the young bloods that wholeheartedly respect what basketball was. And I understand. I hate when motherfuckers be saying, oh, they was playing against janitors and shit like that. That may be true, but that's because they wasn't getting paid as much. You know what I'm saying? That's because they wasn't getting paid as much. They needed to have 9-to-5s and play in the NBA because the NBA wasn't paying shit unless you was a superstar. And at some points, even superstars wasn't getting paid shit. But, so old heads, before you come at me, understand I'm an old soul, buddy. I know some things. I wasn't there, but I've done my due diligence and I've done my research. I know about Elvin Hayes and Wes Unseld and George Mikan and Bob Pettit. Bob Pettit, like Elgin Baylor, Bob Pettit is the prototype for the power forward. We don't have Tim Duncan and Kevin Love and Kevin Garnett and Charles Barkley and bum-ass Karl Malone without Bob Pettit. So don't get me wrong. I get it. But let's not be stupid. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe, make sure you ding that notification bell so you know every time I drop a video. And most of all, YouTube, I love you guys. Peace.
It's the 3 on PLAXtv.